I never thought a simple flag would turn my entire neighborhood into a battleground. But when Karen stood on my driveway, waving her HOA rulebook like a sword, I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. And trust me, what I did next is something she never saw coming. It all started on a calm Sunday morning. I had just finished putting up a small, neatly mounted flag on my porch, something I'd always wanted to display. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, just a clean, respectful flag fluttering in the breeze. But apparently, even that was too much for our resident HOA enforcer, Karen. Within an hour, she marched over with her signature skull, the one that could curdle milk. She didn't even say hello. "You can't put that there," she snapped, pointing so hard I thought her finger might detach. I blinked. "It's just a flag." She held up her binder, her sacred HOA Bible, like she was about to swear me into court. No flags, no banners, no displays of any kind that can be seen from the street. Page 43. I'd lived here for years. I'd seen holiday decorations, garden gnomes, even a 12-foot inflatable Santa on her own lawn last winter. But apparently, this new no flags rule was her latest personal crusade. I stayed calm. "Karen, it's harmless." "Harmful to the uniform aesthetic of the community," she declared, chest puffing like she owned every house on the block. I could have argued. I could have taken it down. But something in the way she talked to me, like she had authority over my property, like she enjoyed shutting people down, hit a nerve I didn't know I had. So I asked the fateful question, "And if I don't?" Her eyes burned like she'd been waiting for that moment her whole life. "Then I'll file a violation report, and if you still don't comply." She paused for dramatic effect. "There will be fines." With that, she strutted off, fully confident she had won. But here's what Karen didn't understand. I don't respond well to threats. And if she wanted to turn something as innocent as a flag into a war, well, I wasn't about to lose. So later that night, sitting in my garage, staring at the small flag she ordered me to remove, a wild thought hit me. A thought so ridiculous, so bold, so perfectly petty, that I genuinely started laughing. If Karen didn't want a small flag on my porch, then she was really going to hate what I put up next. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was stressed, but because every time I pictured Karen's face when she saw what I was planning, I burst out laughing. You know that feeling when an idea is so ridiculously perfect that it almost feels wrong? Yeah, this was one of those moments. Around midnight, I pulled out a notepad and started sketching. At first, it was just a rough concept, but the longer I thought about it, the more the idea grew. If Karen said no flags, then the only logical response was to put up the biggest flag the neighborhood had ever seen. Not a bitter flag, not a slightly oversized flag, no. A giant, roof-mounted, can-be-seen from space flag, petty, absolutely over the top. Without question, worth it, every single second. But before I could make this happen, I had to be strategic. This wasn't the kind of thing you just run to the store and buy. I needed measurements, materials, and most importantly a buddy who didn't ask too many questions. So, the next morning, I called my friend Mike. Mike is the kind of guy who hears an insane plan and responds with, "Yeah, I've got a ladder big enough for that." When I told him what Karen had done, he didn't hesitate. "Oh, we're going big," he said. "I'll grab the truck." Within an hour, we were at a warehouse-style fabric shop asking for the largest, most durable outdoor-grade flag material they had. The worker asked what we needed it for. I just smiled. A project. From there, the plan grew legs. Mike knew a metalworker who owed him a favor. That favor became the custom-built pole we needed. Sturdy enough to survive a storm, and tall enough to be visible from 3 streets away. Every step of the process made me more excited, not because I wanted to break rules, but because I was tired of people like Karen thinking they could bully the neighborhood into submission. By late afternoon, the materials were ready. The only problem: installing a 20-foot pole on top of a roof is not exactly subtle. As we stood in my driveway unloading equipment, I saw blinds shifting across the street, curtains twitching, curious eyes peeking. And then you guessed it, Karen herself stepped outside. She narrowed her eyes like a hawk spotting prey. She didn't walk over, she didn't shout. She just stared, arms crossed, trying to figure out what I was up to. Good. Let her wonder, because tomorrow morning, this neighborhood was going to wake up to something unforgettable. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Not because I was nervous, but because excitement was practically dragging me out of bed. Today was the day Karen's rulebook would finally meet its match. The day one small HOA complaint turned into neighborhood history. Mike pulled up in his truck just as the sky was turning orange. We unloaded. The flag rolled so tightly, it looked like a giant fire hose, and the gleaming metal pole, even I had to admit. Seeing it all laid out made the scale of this plan feel real. We climbed onto the roof while the neighborhood was still quiet. The metal base clanged softly as we bolted it down, working with the slow, careful precision to people who knew a single mistake could send them sliding off the shingles. By the time we secured the final bolt, the sun was fully up, and that's when the show really began. As soon as Mike lifted the massive pole upright, the sound must have echoed down the entire block because suddenly we had an audience. People gathered on sidewalks, porches, driveways, phones came out. Whispers floated through the air like gossiping pigeons. Is that a flagpole? No way, not that big. Karen's gonna explode. And right on cue, her front door shot open. She stormed out wearing slippers, a bathrobe, and pure fury. Her voice sliced through the morning air. What is this? I looked down from the roof, smiling like this was the most normal home improvement project in the world. Good morning, Karen. Beautiful day for a little patriotic decorating. That is not a little decoration, she screamed. You can't put a flag up there. It violates section. Page 43. I finished for her. I remember. She stomped to the curb, staring up at the giant pole as if it had personally insulted her. You need to take that down immediately. I'm warning you. Actually, I called down. You'll want to see it first. With perfect timing, Mike tossed me the top clip. I unrolled the fabric, letting it cascade down like a waterfall of color. The flag caught the morning breeze, snapping open in one enormous, spectacular wave. Gasps erupted from the crowd. The flag stretched wider than my garage, taller than my front door. It didn't just flutter. It dominated the sky above my house. Karen's jaw fell open. She didn't blink, didn't breathe. For once in her life, she had absolutely nothing to say. I hopped down from the roof edge and grinned. You said no flags on the porch. You didn't say anything about the roof. The neighborhood burst into laughter, and Karen? She marched back into her house like a volcano preparing to erupt. Karen disappeared into her house so fast you'd think she was sprinting to defuse a bomb. I didn't know exactly what she was planning, but I knew it involved paperwork, threats, and at least 3 copies of whatever rule she thought she could use against me. Meanwhile, the neighborhood was buzzing. People were walking their dogs a little slower just to get a better look. Cars slowed down as they passed. One elderly neighbor even clapped. By noon, I heard the sound I'd been expecting. The sharp, angry stomp of Karen's footsteps coming down my driveway. She held a stack of documents so thick it looked like she printed the entire Constitution just to make a point. You, she snapped, shoving the papers toward me, are in violation of multiple HOA regulations. I took the stack and flipped through it casually. Multiple? Wow, that was fast work. She folded her arms. Roof-mounted structures require pre-approval from the architectural committee. Flags over a certain size are not permitted. Anything considered visually disruptive is prohibited. And you cannot make modifications to the exterior that— Hold on, I said, raising a hand. Visually disruptive? That sounds subjective. It's not subjective, she insisted. It's the rule. Did you write the rule? I asked. She hesitated. Just a microsecond. But that hesitation was everything. That's not the point, she snapped. The point is, you need to take that monstrosity down immediately. I leaned back, thinking, Karen, when someone is proud of something, they usually show it off. This is my home, my property, my roof, and that flag. It's staying. Her face tightened like she'd bitten into a lemon. I will have the HOA board here within the hour, she declared. And when they see this, you're done. She spun around and stormed off. Sure enough, about 40 minutes later, 3 HOA board members showed up, clipboards in hand, ties to tight, expressions somewhere between confusion and annoyance. They stared at the flagpole towering over my roof, flapping like a superhero cape. One of them cleared his throat. This is impressive. Karen shoved her way in front of him. It's illegal. The board members flipped through their folders. They whispered among themselves. One pointed at a section, the others nodded. Then the lead guy sighed. Technically, he didn't break the existing rule. Karen's jaw dropped. What? He continued. There is no regulation specifying roof-mounted flagpoles, nor any rule about size limits for displays on the roof. Karen looked like she might faint, so, the board member concluded, until we update the rules, there is nothing we can enforce. Karen gasped. Update them now, but it wasn't that easy. HOA rule changes required votes, meetings, notices, and time, and Karen had just run out of ways to control me. The HOA board shuffled awkwardly back to their cars, clearly relieved they didn't have to go toe-to-toe with Karen any longer. She stood on the sidewalk, gripping her rulebook so tightly I thought the spine might snap. The moment they left, she spun toward me with a look that could peel paint off a wall. This isn't over, she hissed. But the thing was, it was over, at least for her, because for the rest of the week, something incredible happened, something neither of us expected. The neighborhood rallied. It started with my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Patel, who walked over with a tray of snacks and said, "I love the flag. It's beautiful." Then her husband added, chuckling, and watching Karen lose her mind. Priceless. Then the Johnson kids across the street painted tiny paper flags and taped them to their windows. Someone down the road put a flag on their lawn chair. Another neighbor mounted one on his mailbox. One guy even stuck a miniature flag into the ground next to his driveway with a note that read, "Inspired by the roof legend." By day 3, the entire block looked like it was celebrating the 4th of July in the middle of fall, and Karen, she was melting down. Every time she left her house, she marched around snapping pictures, muttering dates and rule numbers under her breath. She filled so many violation reports that the HOA office stopped answering her calls. I overheard one board member telling her, "We can't issue fines unless the rules exist first, Karen," which only made her spiral harder. Finally, after days of watching her unravel, I decided to talk to her. Not to fight, not to tease, just to talk. I found her pacing near her mailbox, full of frustration, worrying, and something else I hadn't noticed before: loneliness. "Karen," I said gently, "why do you care this much about rules?" She stopped, stunned that I wasn't mocking her. After a long pause, she mumbled, "Someone has to keep order. If people don't follow the rules, everything falls apart." Or, I said, "Maybe people just want to feel like their home is theirs." She didn't respond. She just stared at the ground. I took a breath. "Look, I'm not your enemy. But you can't control everyone, and honestly, the neighborhood's happier this way." She looked around at the tiny flags decorating the street. For once, she didn't look angry, she looked tired. "I didn't mean to upset everyone," she whispered. I nodded. "Then maybe start fresh." Not as the rule enforcer, just as Karen. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. And believe it or not, over the next few weeks, she softened, less yelling, more listening. The flag stayed up. The neighborhood felt lighter. As for my roof flag, yeah, it's still there. A reminder that sometimes the smallest battles lead to the biggest changes. Enjoying this wild neighborhood showdown? Hit that subscribe button to catch more hilarious real-life stories and outrageous antics. If this made you laugh, give it a like, and drop a comment below. What would you do if Karen tried to stop your fun?